The morning started unremarkably, which in hindsight almost feels like a cruel joke. There's something especially twisted about how betrayal likes to dress itself in normalcy. I was halfway through my usual morning routine, grinding coffee beans, feeding our dog Moose, flipping through emails on my laptop, when Selena came downstairs like she was late for a red carpet. At first, I didn't even process what I was looking at. Her hair was pulled into a high ponytail, sleek and tight, makeup done to perfection, lashes curled, lips lined with that deep wine shade she only wore to events. The dress was what really made me pause. Emerald green, silky, the kind that dipped low in the back and hugged every line of her. Not for work, not for family, definitely not for errands. She breezed past the counter, heels clacking softly on the wood floors, grabbing her bag off the hook like she was in a rush. That's when I said it, more reflex than anything. "You look... wow. Big meeting." Her hand froze for a split second on the strap of her purse, but when she turned around, her smile was already in place. Tight, polite, fake. "Oh, no," she said casually. "Just a family dinner thing." I blinked, processing. Family dinner? On a Tuesday? Yeah, kinda last minute. "We're doing a surprise thing for you." I tilted my head. "For me?" She nodded once, avoiding eye contact, already halfway out the door. "Don't ask too many questions. You're not invited. That's kind of the point." I let out a breathy laugh. "Selena, my birthday's in October." She paused. Just a half second. Maybe less. But I caught it. She looked back at me and said, "It's early. You've been working hard. We wanted to do something nice." And then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her, and for a few seconds, I stood there frozen, one hand still on my coffee cup. My mind replayed the interaction like a faulty cassette tape. The high ponytail, the silk dress, the dismissive tone, the slip in her story. It didn't feel like love. Felt like theater. I sat down at the kitchen island, Moose flopping lazily at my feet. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder I didn't care about. All I could think was, why lie? Selena's sister, Marcy, had always been the default organizer for family events. She was meticulous, Google Docs, email chains, the works. I picked up my phone and *T her a quick message. "Hey, what time is dinner tonight?" Selena said something about a surprise thing. Her reply came faster than I expected. "Dinner? What are you talking about?" The pit in my stomach turned sharp. Heavy. She said there's a family dinner tonight. Surprise early birthday thing. That's news to me. I'm working late tonight. Definitely no dinner. You sure she said it was with us? Positive. That's weird. Yeah, weird. I stared at our conversation for a long time. I'd love to say this was the first time something felt off with Selena, but it wasn't. Lately, it was little things. Phone always face down. Sudden changes in schedule. Showers right after she came home. Increased interest in wellness podcasts, and staying emotionally balanced. She'd been distant, cold in some moments, weirdly affectionate in others, like she was trying to compensate for something. And now this. I opened the app one hoped I'd never need to use. 6 months ago, I installed a location tracker on her phone. She didn't know. I never told her. I wasn't proud of it. But there had been signs. A business trip that didn't match her calendar. A hotel charge that didn't appear on any joint statements. I'd asked, she'd deflected. And I just needed to know. I tapped the icon and waited. The dot blinked for a moment, then settled. Not a family member's house. Not her office. Not even a gym or salon. A restaurant. The Juniper House. A little boutique spot outside Springfield. Dim lighting. Wine list with prices that make your stomach turn. Quiet. Romantic. I'd taken her there once, back when things were good. I stared at the blinking location for a minute before grabbing my keys. The drive out felt like moving through fog. I don't even remember half of it. Just the sound of tires humming on the pavement and the occasional tightening of my grip on the wheel. My brain was a war zone. One side telling me I was jumping to conclusions. The other reminding me how practiced her lie had sounded. When I pulled into the parking lot, her car was there. A silver CR-V, license plate ending in 84R. Hers. No mistake. I parked a few spots away and stayed in the car for a moment. My heart was beating out of rhythm, like it was trying to warn me. I could have turned around. Could have gone home and pretended I never came. But I didn't. I stepped out and walked around to the side entrance, staying close to the building. There was a stained glass panel along the side that gave a blurry view into the main dining area. I crouched near the edge, keeping myself out of view but close enough to see. And there she was, Selena, sitting at a window table for two. Across from her, a man I'd never seen before. Tall, fit, gray blazer, clean-cut in a way that screamed money and charm. His hand was resting gently on hers, and her smile, God, that smile. Not forced, not polite, but soft, relaxed, real. I watched as he leaned in, said something close to her ear. She laughed genuinely. Then she touched his shoulder, tracing a small circle with her fingers, like she'd done it 1,000 times. Something broke in me. I didn't go in, didn't yell, didn't throw the door open or demand answers. I just stood there and watched the woman I thought I knew slowly become a stranger. I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo through the glass. It wasn't perfect, colors distorted from the stain pattern, but clear enough to make out her face, his hand, and that damned expression of hers. I looked at the screen for a few seconds before sliding the phone back into my pocket. Then I turned around and walked to my car. She didn't see me, never even glanced toward the window. Whatever world they were in, I wasn't part of it anymore. And the worst part? I think a small part of me already knew. She came home just after 11 p.m. I was sitting on the couch, lights off, the TV playing some late-night rerun I wasn't watching. My eyes were locked on the front door, fingers absently drumming against the armrest. The photo I'd taken still burned in my pocket, weighing heavier than it should have. The moment I heard her key turn in the lock, my heart picked up. Anger, anxiety, disbelief all crowding each other for space. She stepped inside like she had nothing to hide, like she hadn't just spent the evening whispering across a table with another man. Her heels clicked softly on the hardwood as she dropped her keys in the bowl and slipped out of her shoes. I watched from the shadows as she shrugged off her coat and stretched, sighing like she'd just come home from a long shift instead of a secret date. "Hey, babe," she said, voice breezy. "Sorry I'm late. Dinner ran longer than expected. You know how my family gets when the wine starts flowing." I didn't say anything. She paused, eyes adjusting to the dark. "Grayson?" she asked, peering into the living room. "Why are you sitting in the dark like a serial K***ler?" Still nothing. I waited until she stepped into the room before speaking. My voice came out lower than I expected, cold, deliberate. "How was the food?" Her body stiffened slightly. Not much. Just enough that if I hadn't been watching for it, I might have missed it. "What?" she asked. "At the restaurant," I said. "The Juniper House. You know, the one on the edge of Springfield, where you were tonight." The silence that followed was everything. Heavier than a scream. For the first time, she stopped moving. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. Her eyes darted, calculating, searching for an explanation she could live with. I didn't wait for it. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and turned the screen toward her. One photo. Blurred colors, but unmistakable figures. Him. Her smile. His hand on hers. Frozen forever in the glow of that stained glass. Her face didn't change. No guilt. No shock. No pleading. Just stillness. Like this was a moment she had rehearsed. "That's my therapist," she said. I blinked, honestly stunned she even tried. She folded her arms across her chest, calm as ever. "His name is Daniel. He's been helping me with some things. Personal things. Emotional clarity." I laughed short, bitter. "Is emotional clarity what you get when you let your therapist touch your hand across a candlelit dinner?" She didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. "I needed support," she said. "And I couldn't talk to you about it." I leaned forward. "So you talked to him? Like that?" She looked away then, just for a second. "Enough. I was tired," she said, "of pretending we were fine. of pretending you were still the man I fell in love with. And there it was. That sentence hit me harder than the photo ever could. Excuse me? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Her tone shifted. Less flat now, more clipped, like she'd been bottling it for months. You've changed, Grayson. You've been passive. Checked out. You barely look at me. And when you do, it's like you don't even see me anymore. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. You're deflecting, I said. You got caught. And now you're trying to pin this on me? I'm not deflecting, she said, still eerily calm. I'm telling you how I feel. You want the truth? Fine. I felt alone in this marriage for longer than I can remember. Daniel listened. He gave me clarity. I stared at her, barely recognizing the woman in front of me. This whole time, I said slowly, you've been painting me as some cold, absent shell of a man, so you could justify holding hands with someone else in the dark. Don't twist my words, she snapped. This wasn't about him. It was about you and me, and what we've let rot between us. Her voice wasn't raised. It wasn't desperate. It was final, like she'd already accepted whatever came next. I felt the air go out of me. This wasn't denial. This was detachment, like she'd already left me in her mind weeks ago and was just waiting for the right moment to finish the script. I stood up, the weight of everything settling in my chest like wet cement. So that's it? I asked. You lie. Catch you. And instead of remorse, you give me a diagnosis. Her expression didn't change. I told you the truth. You just don't like what it says about you. I shook my head, stunned. You think this is about me not being masculine enough? About me being dull? When did I become the villain in your little therapy sessions? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. That silence was the final blow. I turned away, feeling something fracture deep in my chest. Not anger, not even betrayal, just grief. For the version of her I thought I knew. For the version of us that had existed in my head. She said nothing as I walked past her. No apology, no plea, not even a goodbye. That night, I sat in the guest room, door locked, lights off, and stared at the ceiling for hours. The clock ticked, and the weight of her words echoed louder than any fight we'd ever had. You've changed. You're dull. He gave me clarity. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She was already gone. And I was just catching up. 2 days. That's how long I stayed quiet. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I didn't ask her any more questions. We shared the same roof, but it felt like two ghosts haunting different wings of a dying house. I'd walk past her in the hallway, and she'd pretend to be on her phone. I'd hear her in the kitchen, talking too softly into her AirPods. Every so often, she'd try to act like things were normal. Ask if I needed anything from the store, or if I'd eaten. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Not because I didn't have words, but because if I opened my mouth, I knew they'd come out in pieces. The photo haunted me. The silence haunted me more. And through it all, I kept hearing her voice on that first night back. He gave me clarity. I don't know what clarity means to someone like Selena anymore. Maybe clarity is the ability to convince yourself that betrayal is a form of self-care. Maybe it's the talent of lying with a straight face while blaming the person you lied to. Either way, I was done sitting around like a passive observer in my own life. On Thursday afternoon, I drove to her office. I didn't really have a plan. That's not true. I had something that looked like a plan. What I had was instinct, and a gut full of suspicion I wasn't willing to ignore anymore. Her office building was a sleek, mid-rise tower near downtown. Her car was in the lot, parked at an angle like always just barely within the lines. I went inside and asked the receptionist if she was available. Selena's out to lunch, the assistant chirped. She should be back in an hour or so. I forced a polite smile. Thanks. Across the street, there's a small cafe with patio seating. I walked over, grabbed a bottled water, and found a spot at the edge of the sidewalk, where I could see her office door. I told myself I was just here to confirm a feeling, to look myself in the mirror later and know I hadn't ignored the signs. But part of me already knew what I was about to see. 25 minutes later, Selena stepped out of the building. She wasn't alone. Same guy. Same damn gray blazer. Daniel, the therapist. They weren't touching at first, but their body language said enough. They walked in sync. Too close. Too comfortable. He said something, and she laughed. Not politely, but like she forgot the world existed. They crossed the street, and I sank a little lower in my chair. I thought maybe they were just grabbing a casual lunch. Maybe this was salvageable. Then he reached for her lower back, guiding her through the cafe's side door with the kind of ease that only comes from practice. She didn't flinch. She smiled. Inside, they didn't take a booth. They took a corner table. A secluded one. I stood up and walked around to the window. No laptops. No notebooks. No pens. Nothing that suggested work or therapy or anything remotely professional. There was a glass of red wine in front of her. A glass of water for him. Their fingers were intertwined again. He spoke softly and she leaned in too close. Then she laughed. And then they kissed. Not a hesitant kiss. Not a panicked slip. A full, open, and make kiss like no one was watching. Like they were safe. I stared for a second, numb. My breath fogged the glass in front of me. I wanted to bang on the window. I wanted to walk in and flip the damn table. I wanted to scream, but I didn't do any of that. Instead, I pulled out my phone and took another photo. This one clearer, closer. Proof that Daniel wasn't just a shoulder to cry on. He was the shoulder she chose. And just like that, the lie was over. The fantasy she spun, about therapy, emotional support, about me being the problem, it all came apart like rotted thread. I didn't even feel sad. I felt sharp, focused, like a part of me that had been asleep finally opened its eyes. I turned away from the window, crossed the street, and walked back to my car. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. She had made her choice, and I had just made mine. That night, I didn't say a word to her when she walked through the door. She came in humming some song under her breath, carrying a takeout bag that smelled nothing like the cafe I just watched her dine at. She placed it on the counter like she'd picked it up for me, like we were still a couple, still a team. I watched her from the hallway, arms crossed. She turned, saw me, and offered a casual smile. "Hey," she said. "I grabbed dinner in case you were hungry." I almost laughed. She didn't notice the fire behind my eyes. She didn't notice anything. Because she wasn't looking. Because she didn't care. She turned back toward the counter, pulling out napkins and silverware like she was setting up for some quiet evening. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't afraid of being caught. She didn't think she'd been caught. She had no idea I knew. She thought I had bought the lie. The therapist lie. The emotional clarity nonsense. She thought I'd accepted my place in this mess. That I'd roll over and wallow and take what she gave me. She had no clue I was already preparing to burn it all down. Quietly, cleanly, completely. I watched her pour a glass of wine, completely unaware that everything had changed. She didn't know yet, but she would. The next day I came home early. I wasn't supposed to. Thursdays were my longest workdays, and Selena knew that. It was part of the rhythm of our lives, one of the predictable beats she'd come to rely on. She assumed she had the house to herself until at least 7. That I'd walk in tired, distracted, carrying the weight of another day. Too drained to ask questions, too passive to notice. She was wrong. When I opened the front door at 4:15, the house was still. Smelled like garlic and rosemary. Something simmering in the kitchen. Music played low from her phone on the counter, one of those sultry, moody playlists she used to light candles to. And there she was, in the kitchen, barefoot, stirring a pan on the stove. A glass of red wine in her hand, one she didn't expect me to see. She was making her special occasion dish, the one she used to save for anniversaries or big moments in our relationship. She turned, and for a split second, the look on her face wasn't guilt or shame. It was panic. But it vanished quickly, replaced by a wide smile. "You're home early," she said, voice light. "Everything okay?" I didn't answer, just walked into the dining room and dropped a thick manila envelope onto the table with a thud loud enough to make her flinch. She looked at it, then at me. "What's that?" "Go ahead," I said. Open it. Her hesitation said everything. But she stepped forward, slowly, wiping her hands on a towel before pulling back the flap. Inside was the photo from the cafe, clear in color. Her hand on his, their lips touching. Right beneath it, a screenshot *T of the location tracking from the night she claimed to be at her sister's house. Below that, a printout of messages I'd pulled from her cloud backup, ones she never thought I'd see. Messages she hadn't deleted, thinking I was too oblivious to ever go looking. Messages like, I can't believe how easy it is. He still thinks you're in therapy, lol. You're mine tonight. I don't care what excuse you have to make. He doesn't touch you like I do. Does he? She didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't even touch the wine glass again. Instead, she slowly sank into the chair and stared at the papers like they might rearrange themselves into something less damning. Grayson, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. I know how this looks. No, I cut in. You don't get to start with that. She blinked, stunned. I sat across from her, calm, measured. I had practiced this in my head all night. How I'd speak, where I'd sit, even how I'd fold my hands. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I wanted her to remember this version of me, the one she didn't see coming. I gave you the benefit of the doubt, I said. You looked me in the eye and told me he was your therapist, that this was about emotional clarity. Meanwhile, you were kissing him at lunch and laughing behind my back. She swallowed hard, but said nothing. You know what the saddest part is? I continued. It's not the affair. It's that you didn't even try to hide it well. You didn't care if I found out. You were just waiting for me to be the one to end it, so you wouldn't have to. That hit her. I saw it, the tiny tremor in her bottom lip, the twitch in her jaw as she tried to hold herself together. Finally, she spoke. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said softly. It started as something else. I really was seeing him as a therapist. But then what? I snapped, my composure finally cracking. You slipped and fell into his lap? You kissed him during a counseling session? Don't insult both of us. I was lost, Grayson, she said, louder now, more defensive. You stopped seeing me. You stopped being there. I needed someone. I shook my head. So you found someone. You didn't ask. You didn't talk. You just looked for a replacement. You weren't the man I married anymore, she snapped suddenly, rising from the chair. You were quiet, numb, like everything we had just stopped mattering to you. I stood too, meeting her at eye level. You never gave me a chance to matter again. You made up your mind before I even knew there was a problem. The silence that followed was deafening. It felt like the moment after a crash, where everything is still moving, but your brain hasn't caught up yet. She looked at the table again, at the evidence, at the years we'd built together, now reduced to photos and printouts. And finally, she whispered the words I'd been waiting for. What now? I took a breath. Steady. Final. I'm filing for divorce. Her face crumpled. Her knees buckled slightly, and she gripped the back of the chair to keep herself upright. Grayson, wait. Please. No, I said firmly. You don't get to ask for anything anymore. Not after what you did. I can't lose this, she stammered. I can't lose you. You already did, I said, stepping back. That's when the panic finally showed up. Not the manufactured concern I saw 2 nights ago. Not the rehearsed lines. This was real. Her breath caught. Her hands trembled. The tears started. Not dramatic but quiet. Stunned. She realized then, I wasn't bluffing. This wasn't a threat. This was happening. She reached out, but I stepped away. And for the first time since this began, I felt something close to power again. Not revenge. Not satisfaction. Just control. Over my life. My choices. My future. She wasn't going to drag me down with her. She made her decisions. Now she could live with them. Alone. The first thing she did was cry. Not right away. Not when I dropped the word divorce like a bomb in the center of our kitchen. Back then, she was still clinging to some imagined thread of control. Still convincing herself I was bluffing. that I'd cool off, that I'd walk it back. But the next morning, when the silence didn't fade, when she came downstairs and found my wedding ring on the nightstand and the envelope still sitting where she left it, the reality cracked her open. She stood in the doorway in that oversized hoodie she always wore on lazy Sundays, looking small. For once, she didn't have a speech ready. No practiced lines. Just those glassy, wet eyes and a shaky voice. "Grayson," she whispered, "can we please talk?" I didn't answer right away. Just sipped my coffee. Watched her squirm in the doorway like a stranger trying to sell me something. She took a step in. "I know I made a mistake. I know I messed everything up. But this can't be how it ends." I set the mug down. "Why not?" She blinked. "Because I love you." That was her first card. The one that used to work. But not this time. "No," I said. "You loved the version of me that didn't ask questions. That didn't look too closely. That paid the mortgage and kept quiet. That guy's gone." Her mouth opened, then closed. So she shifted tactics. "Okay," she said, voice trembling. "Then let's go to therapy. Real therapy. I'll stop seeing him. I already did. I ended it. I swear. Just don't throw it all away without trying." "You threw it away," I said. "The minute you looked at me like I was disposable." "I didn't." "You kissed another man," I interrupted, standing now. "You lied. Repeatedly. You made me think I was crazy. You used therapy as a cover story for an affair. Don't stand there and pretend this was a moment of weakness. It was a months-long campaign that shut her up for a while. Then the tears started, harder this time. She moved closer, reached for my hand. I stepped back. "Please," she whispered. "I don't want to lose you. I know I was wrong. I was scared, and I acted like a coward. But what?" I asked. "You thought I'd never find out? That you'd keep both lives running side by side until one of them got boring?" She didn't answer. Didn't have to. That night, I started sleeping at a friend's place. I didn't tell her where. I didn't respond to her texts. She sent photos of us. Our anniversary trip to Sedona, the first apartment we moved into, a selfie from that rainy night we built the blanket fort in the living room. I didn't reply to any of it. Then came the guilt bombs. "I still see your face in everything. I don't eat. I can't sleep. I miss you so much it physically hurts. I never meant to hurt you. I was just empty, and I didn't know how to ask for help." I ignored them all. So she switched gears again. "You know I'm entitled to half of everything, right? My lawyer says you don't have as much leverage as you think. We can do this the hard way if that's what you want." I remember reading that last one at 2 a.m., sitting in the dark with my laptop open and a stack of legal documents in front of me. And for a moment, just a moment, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. She had nothing left but scare tactics. She tried shame, guilt, nostalgia, and now threat. Like this was just another fight, another power struggle she could twist to her advantage. Like I hadn't already seen her true face through the stained glass window of that restaurant. What she didn't realize was, the man she was dealing with now wasn't the man she married. I'd already had the consultations. I'd already retained the attorney. I'd already locked down every shared asset, gathered every document, collected every piece of evidence I needed. Hell, I even had the logins to her email, not to snoop anymore, but to protect myself from whatever mess she might try to drag me into. I wasn't reacting. I was executing. When I finally responded days later, after a blessed silence, it was a single text. "I'm not afraid of you. You made your choices. Now you'll live with them." She didn't reply. Not that day. But 3 days later, I got another message. No threats this time. Just a photo of her hand bare. No ring. No caption. As if that was supposed to mean something. As if she hadn't already taken it off long ago, in ways that mattered far more than jewelry. That night, she called. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. "Grayson," she said, voice soft, raw, barely audible over the background hum of her apartment. "I know you hate me. I'd hate me too. I don't expect forgiveness. I want you to know I'm sorry. Not the performative kind. Not the kind people say to make themselves feel better. I mean it. I ruined the best thing I ever had. And I don't think I'll ever stop regretting that. I listened to the whole thing. Then I deleted it. Because regret doesn't undo a single thing. And apologies mean nothing when they come from a place of loss, not realization. She wasn't sorry when it mattered. She was sorry because I walked away. Because I was no longer someone she could control. And for the first time in years, I felt something dangerously close to peace. 3 days after she moved out, I came home to a box on the porch. No name, no note. Just taped cardboard and something fragile inside. I brought it in and opened it. Photos, our wedding day, beach trips, birthdays. On top, a card from years ago in her handwriting. To forever. Underneath, a letter. She wrote that pride had cost her everything. Said I was the only person who ever made her feel grounded. That he, the man she loved, had vanished the moment things got real. She called it karma. Said she finally understood loneliness. Said she never stopped loving me. I didn't respond. Some doors, once closed, aren't meant to open again. She tried everything, messages through friends, emails, even her lawyer. The final letter came folded neatly in legal stationery. A plea to reconsider. Therapy, counseling, redemption. She said she'd changed, that she'd finally seen it all clearly. But it didn't matter. I was already gone. Physically, mentally. I had a new apartment, a new life, a mirror I could look into without shame. The divorce finalized quietly, no drama. She lost the house, lost the name, lost the last thread of my trust. And me? I found something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real, honest peace. The kind that doesn't come from someone else's arms. Just my own.